We shall study from Daniel chapter 7 today. Daniel chapter 7. Please open your Bibles to Daniel chapter 7 and the first 14 verses of Daniel 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed, when he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, divers one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. And it raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it four wings of a fowl. The beast had also four heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and it devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, in his horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now, in this passage that we read, we have the vision of 4 beasts, the vision of 4 beasts that God granted to Daniel. Well, last chapter was about the events that happened during the Medo-Persian king Darius. But now we are going back again to the Babylonian kingdom. In chapter 7, it's not in chronological order, by the way. These are events that is placed more in a way that the Spirit of God has guided Daniel, which is not chronological, but I would say according to God's wisdom. In a way, some might say topical, but it's also not easy to defend it. But whatever it be, just take note. The chronologically, these events are not placed chronologically. So there will be some to and fro movement. So now we are back to Babylonian period, when Nebuchadnezzar's son Belshazzar was ruling, and we are told here that the vision recorded here in this chapter was revealed to Daniel, and this must have been a very special experience altogether for Daniel, because this is a dream, and also it says visions. He had a dream and visions of his head on his bed. So he was lying down. He was on his bed. And part of it was when he was awake, so it's called dream. It's called vision. Part of it was when he is asleep. It's called dream. So probably he was in and out of sleep, very likely. And what we see in verse 2 is that Daniel spake what he has seen, and he said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. It's a very active scene. A sea and winds blowing from four corners, hitting very hard on the water, and is stirred up. So you can see a lot of commotion going on. And what's the commotion? What is it all about? Well, obviously, something is going to happen in that sea. And when we look at next verse, verse 3, it says, 4 great beasts came up from the sea, divers one from another. Now there were 4 beasts, animals, strange looking animals. Every one is different from the other. No one is alike. So each one capturing the attention of Daniel. They are already very strange. They are not like normal beasts. They are monstrous looking. And also they are different. So he had to look at one another. He cannot say, oh, all look alike, just look at one. Everyone is different, capturing his attention. And he explained to us here what these beasts were. But let me just take your attention a little further to verse 17. And there, when he was interpreting this, he says, these great beasts, which are 4, are what? 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth. So these animals that he saw in his vision were representative of 4 great kings that were to come. So keep that in your mind, okay? And let's look at the first one. In verse 4. The first was like a lion. In this agitated sea, you see a lion. Normally no lion lives in the sea. If one fall into it, they try to get out of it quickly. They are not aquatic animals. And so it's very strange they came from among the sea. But in the prophetic visions, most of the time, the sea is a reference to the humanity at large. Even in the book of Revelation you see. So this is a sea of humanity in a sense. And there you see that the lion coming out. Now lion is of course an animal that symbolizes power and strength. It is one of the mightiest animal in the animal kingdom that we know. And so you might think, what's so strange about a lion? Look, it's not just a lion. We are told in verse 4, the first was like a lion and had what? Eagle's wings. And these wings must be very big one. Normally eagles have very wide span wings. When they stretch it up, it's really very wide. To lift a big animal like, a heavy animal like lion, you really need a much stronger wing. So it had the look of an eagle's wing. Very strong wings. And normally the wings in the Bible refers to not only strength but also speed, swiftness. So lion is not a very fast animal. They can run, but of course it's not the fastest animal. Maybe you would say cheetah, or leopards also can run faster than a lion. So the wing adds speed to its strength. Now, interestingly, the lion and eagle were both symbols of Babylonian kingdom. Okay, you have it actually mentioned in the book of Jeremiah and also in Ezekiel. So the picture of lion and the wing. Remember, we already noticed from verse 17 that it's about king. We believe this is a reference to the Babylonian kingdom. The lion and the wing, eagle wing. And Nebuchadnezzar's army was not only very powerful, but quite swift moving. They had great mobility. That's why they were able to come from Babylon all the way to Israel and capture it and go back. So they are not just large size. You know, it's not easy to a large size army. It's not easy to move a large size army. It takes months to get them moved, you know, because you need the food, you need the armory, you need organization to move the people. So it's very, very difficult. In the ancient time, they didn't have the modern transportation facilities. Now you can lift all the equipment and food by air and transport in a few hours. But in those days, no helicopter, nothing. And to move an army that is like 20,000 or 50,000 soldiers, it's a very difficult job. Very difficult job. It takes much time. But because they had such a structured and well-organized army, Babylonians were able to move quite fast. And that is depicted in the fact that the lion had eagle's wings. They could move things fast. But what is more eye-catching is the fact that in verse 4 we are told it was lifted up from the earth. Doesn't mean it was flying, but made stand upon the feet as a man. As a man. The lion standing on two legs, hind legs, like a man. Oh, that's frightening sight. The lion on 4 feet already is frightening. But when it put up both hands and in the air and stand up like a man, whoa, even more aggressive, as though it's going to devour you. And so we see that the animal standing up, and then even more startling, the last phrase of verse 4, a man's heart was given to it. What is that? It was not beastly. It was beastly in the beginning, like a lion. But now it has changed. More compassionate, more gracious, like a man, with sensitiveness. Doesn't it point us back to Nebuchadnezzar's experience? When Nebuchadnezzar became like an animal, then the Bible says he was given the heart of a man. And so we realize that this could be well a reference to Babylonian kingdom and particularly to the rule of Nebuchadnezzar. All right. Now let's look at the second beast. We will study the interpretation of this in greater detail next week, okay? But let's have a feel of this vision today. The second beast was like a bear, an animal of formidable strength, isn't it? A bear, if you have seen a large bear, whoa, it's really frightening, the sight of a bear. I think if I see a bear face to face, I may just faint. The thing so muscular and so powerful. I'm not talking about koala, you know. Koala, Singaporeans like to call the koala, what? It's a koala bear. It's not a bear. It's not a bear. It's a cuddly animal in Australia climbing the eucalyptus. The big one you cannot cuddle. So here is the second animal, which was like a bear. And then we notice about this bear that it had what? 3 ribs. Wow, that's very frightening. It's killing. It's the ribs, of course, means that the whatever in his mouth has been destroyed, right? Otherwise, the ribs won't be in the mouth. So we are told in verse 5, it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. So it looks like it was in a reclining position. One side of the bear was up, very comfortably lying on one side. Okay, so it was not flat on his chest, but leaning on one side. Other side of the bear is lifted up from the ground, and it has 3 ribs. If you have seen bears eating and then they have this bone in the mouth and chew, lying down in a reclined position, that's the kind of picture you have it here. And so there you have this bear with 3 ribs in the mouth. Now, generally, Bible scholars believe these 3 ribs represent 3 ancient kingdoms that Medo-Persians have conquered before they took Babylon. And they think that it is Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. Now, if you remember the order of the superpowers in the world, before Medo-Persians came to power, they were Babylon. Before Babylon, the superpower was Assyria. Before Assyria, it was Egypt. So they have actually suppressed and subdued and in a way consumed the powers of Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. So quite a number of credible Bible scholars point to this fact, that these ribs could be references to those kingdoms. If it's not exactly Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon, then maybe others whom they destroyed along the way. But definitely it refers to some powers that they have devoured and overwhelmed. Now let's look at the third beast. Verse 6 talks about him. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard. This is a fast one. The lion and the bear are not very fast moving. But the next one is not as big as lion and bear, but very fast. Leopard is slightly smaller than lion. And so verse 6 says, there was a leopard which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. Now that leopard is already a fast moving animal, and then it has 4 wings, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. That make it very fast moving creature. So like a bird, it had wings, but 4 wings, and that I believe is a emphasis on its swiftness, the speed with which this king and the kingdom moved. By the way, do you have any idea from the history of the world which king of the past moved his army the fastest? One way to understand is, who was the youngest world ruler of the ancient world? Alexander the Great. This is about the Greek Empire. The Alexander the Great was a very, very smart general or emperor. He believed in blistering attack. Before the enemy realized, you are on his throat. Quickly move. You don't just move around, make the enemy very aware that you are coming and give him time to oppose you. His idea is lurk and pounce. Quickly choke the enemy. He also quickly died. You're right. So his enemy, death, was faster than him. Death came upon him faster than he thought. Well, this is true in the history of the world, that the Greek empire was the fastest, faster than the Egyptians, Assyrians, Babylonians, and Medo-Persians. But take note, this particular creature in verse 6 that looked like a leopard not only had 4 wings, but it also had what? 4 heads. 4 leopard heads. You can imagine, the leopards have spots. So the 4 heads with spots look like a cat face, but with ferociousness. And so 1 body, 4 wings, and 4 heads. Why 4 heads? 4 heads suggests that Actually, after Alexander the Great, his kingdom divided into among the four generals of the Greek Empire. These were the highest ranking officials under Alexander the Great. So as soon as Alexander the Great died, these generals divided the Greek Empire among themselves, and they took each one his portion. Maybe we will discuss a little bit more detail about that in our next class. So the heads represent the authority, the rule. So after the Medo-Persians, when the Greeks came into power with great speed, they also found themselves being divided into four parts under the generals of Alexander the Great. Now we look at the fourth one, the 7th verse. In verse 7 we read, "After this I saw in the night visions, and behold the fourth beast." We are not told what it looked like, but we are told of its nature. Dreadful and terrible. Dreadful and terrible. They were terrifying and powerful. They were so intimidating. The sight of it will scare you to death. Very, very terrifying. And so we read further. And strong, exceedingly, very strong also. To match its strength, they also had great iron teeth. Not just iron teeth, but great iron teeth. Just imagine how powerful it can be. Already the teeth of the animals are frightening. Just imagine the lion's teeth. But then if it's iron sharp and iron strong, ooh, it's like a iron fork poked into your body when the teeth comes down. Come. Unbelievable strength. And this beast had large iron teeth with the power to crush. And then it says in verse 7, it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. Wow. After devouring the prey, it will tear apart, then whatever left over, it will not just leave it. It will go there and use its leg and tread upon it and crush it into the dust. Very frightening sight. Nobody like to be around this animal. So it will trample underfoot its prey. But also take note, there's a significant feature to this fourth beast. It was different from all others. At the end of verse 7 we are told it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Wow! This frightening creature, which is not compared to any animal, it got how many horns on the head? 10 horns. And then we read in verse 8, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. So there were 10 horns plus a little horn. That makes how many? 11. There were 10 horns when Daniel first saw it. Then you watch it, hey, what's that? Something growing on the head. Oh, another horn. So among the 10 horns, there's a little one that grown. And now this little horn had an insignificant beginning because it's called little horn. But it is going to grow. It is growing to the point that it will uproot 3 existing ones. So there were 10, one new one came, and 3 are removed. So how many left? 10 minus 3, 7, plus 1, 8. Boys, you can calculate? See whether your teacher is good in maths. I mean your teacher is good, but you are good. Okay. So 10 horns suddenly found a rival. He has no regard for the 10 horns. He comes up, maybe the 3 tried to meddle with him, or removed. So it ended up with 8. Right? Now who they are and all that we will discuss later. But just take note of a few features here in verse 8. It says, the little horn before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. So these 3 can never grow up again. They are completely removed. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Well, this little horn is not just a horn. It can wisely behave. He is a mastermind. Got eyes to see and mouth to speak. He was a very boastful person. In fact, repeatedly, this chapter is going to describe this person as a big-mouthed person. By the way, this little horn, as I conclude this study, is actually a representation of the Antichrist to come. He is very eloquent and smart and eloquent politician, and he is coming. Okay, so let's have a good understanding of this vision, all right? This is the vision of 4 beasts. 4 beasts. Who is the first beast? It was a lion. Lion with how many, what kind of wings? Eagle wings. It represents Babylon. The second animal was a bear, huge one. And in his mouth was 3 ribs, because it devoured 3 nations. And it became very powerful. Then comes a third one, very fast moving animal, leopard. And the leopard, not only was fast moving animal, but it also had 4 wings, super fast. And that refers to Alexander the Great. Right? But this animal had another 4 things. 4 heads. 4 heads. That refers to the 4 generals who ruled after Alexander the Great. Then comes the most strange and terrifying animal, which had 10 horns. 10 horns. And there comes a little one. Started very insignificant, but soon it grew, uprooted 3, making a league of 8. But he was very unique. He got eyes to see, smart, and a big mouth to talk. He was eloquent. And we will come back and study the greater details of it, God willing, next week. So thank you for joining. You're a little late, but welcome. Come, yeah. Come. You want to sit? We are about to finish. Any questions about what we learned today?
Daniel was written in what person?
Daniel was written during the 70 years of captivity. We can't put the exact date, so it would be something like 530, 540. It's over a period of time. Because I believe as God revealed dreams, He wrote them down. So it's not written in a day or in a month, over a span of years during the captivity. So you might say that the date of Daniel's authorship would be the date of the captivity, which is somewhere in the mid 500 BC.